Hello, hello, hello. So I'm going to keep this opening short and sweet. This episode is a little bit longer. When Lindsay and I first sat down and started talking about her really remarkable story. And I am using the word remarkable, although it's funny. When I first started working on the podcast, and this isn't my first podcast, I've gone through different podcasters, right? And listened to tips and different things. And I actually have a list that I got from Grow the Show. It's a podcast out there, little, plug there for Grow the Show. But if you are getting started in podcasting, this guy's really great. He brings a lot of experts on, people in the podcasting world who do very well. And one of the things that came up was a forbidden word list when you're describing your podcast. So sometimes when I say the words in the actual episode, I get a little like, oh, I'm not supposed to say remarkable. But honestly, Lindsay's story is remarkable. She is a true testament to a fierce female who honestly she's been down, and then gone down even further. And it's something she struggled with since she was a teenager. She's very open and honest about her story. And it was our first time actually meeting. We had only ever spoken on the phone. We did do a Zoom to kind of go over the episode. And yeah, she's just really just well put together. And I told her when she came in here, I said, your energy is like calm and collective and just together, right? And it's interesting, and we all do this, right? We're surprised by how other people see us or what they think is going on with us, right? And it's not necessarily that I don't think that she doesn't have her struggles still. Of course she does. But it's a testament to how far she has come, how hard she has worked to create not only her business, but this whole new image of who she is as a woman. And that's one of the things we really get into. And I don't know if anyone out there listening, men, women, but women, I really am talking to you. If you're in a place right now where life is just really kicking you and you think that there's no way out, I assure you that there is. You are in control, right? You're the captain. So you get to decide if you want to completely change everything about your life, you can. You absolutely can. This is a challenge for you to get started in that, to make that happen. So today, sitting down with Lindsay Olyha from Scrubd Esthetics in Cranberry Township. She is a certified registered nurse practitioner. She is a medical spa. And this fall, they're going to be launching an academy where if you are a nurse, they will have certain requirements, obviously, to get into the academy. But if it's something that you've been interested in, make sure that you follow her on social media. Everything is going to be in the caption. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, just go to the description of the actual episode. Her tags will be in there. And yeah, let's get to it. Happy Monday, Alter Eagle. Hello, and welcome to this season of Alter Eagle. We are starting season 1 with the topic of addiction in Butler County. Conversations on the physical side of addiction, trauma, the neuroscience, mental health, and stigma surrounding addiction. Experts, resources, and stories from people who have fought addiction head on. I am your host, Laura Crago. Let's keep the conversation going. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com better.com/alter eagle. That's better, HELP.com/alter eagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel.
Bored in Butler County? Need to know where to catch a show this weekend? What events are even happening in the area? I'm Molly Miller, one of the writers behind the Butler Eagles Weekend Entertainment section, and I'm here to banish the boredom from your cold and rainy days. Sign up and receive Miller Minutes, that's my column, and a list of Butler County-based events direct to your inbox every Thursday afternoon by visiting bit.ly/ButlerEagleWE newsletter. That's bit.ly/ButlerEagleWE newsletter. You can also find the latest events under the A&E tab at www.butlereagle.com. Click Weekend Entertainment, or pick up Thursday's print edition of the paper for the latest events. See, there's lots to do in Butler County when you read the Butler Eagles Weekend Entertainment section. Visit bit.ly/ButlerEagleWE newsletter to sign up for the weekly newsletter, so you won't be bored in Butler County again.
Okay, I'll try my best to repeat it for you. Sometimes I just ramble. I'm like,
no, I'm the same way. And whenever I get to that place of saying something, I probably couldn't repeat it again unless it was a script. And sometimes a script is not the best way.
I know.
To go. Well, your story is really remarkable.
Thank you.
And I do hope that I am not the first person to describe it that way, because as I'm, looking at this, and even having spoken to Rachel, your journey into nursing and entrepreneurship, which you just were talking about, challenging and a unique one. So let's start there. Let's start of your battling. So Lindsay, how do you say your last name again?
My last name is Olyha. And that's my new last name. I was just married a little over a year ago. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Olyha.
Olyha. Okay. Lindsay Olyha is sitting down with us today. So CRNP, Certified Registered Nurse Practitioner?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. So you battled substance abuse. You say you hit rock bottom, experienced burnout as an ICU nurse, and leaving the bedside, that you decided to pursue your dream of owning your own medical spa. This started in your teenage years.
Yes.
You grew up with a pretty normal childhood.
Yeah, I grew up in McCandless Township, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. I'm an only child. Both my parents they've been married for like 55 years. So I had like a really good childhood. I think a lot of people expect my story to come from a very traumatic childhood, and that's just not my story.
It's interesting though how that's the assumption that most people make. Most people make that assumption that something awful must have happened, or you must have had parents who weren't present, and that's just not the case.
I think for me, like, people assume that substance abuse disorders are the result of trauma. And I think in most cases that is true. For me, initially, it was more of like a perfect storm. I'm very rebellious, very independent, very extroverted. And I was just predisposed to those behaviors because I was intrigued by breaking the rules and doing the thing, And then as that progressed, certainly aspects of trauma have become a part of the continued use and abuse, and how that all kind of hit rock bottom for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you moved into your late teens, you became a single mother at 21.
Yes.
I think back to when I was 21 years old, and I look at women like yourself, and to me, you're an inspiration to me to want to like kind of get up and get going and do things. Like even just sitting here talking to you about like when we're done recording today, and going to introduce you to a few people here but what you have to do today, and you're like, today's my admin day. I have this, I have that. And it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I tend to get a little off course with what I'm doing because I'm very like up in the air and if something changes, but you seem very focused on what needs to get done. And as I'm looking, I haven't been to your business yet, but from what I see, it's like a gorgeous space, right?
Thank you.
So to me, that's like a lot of planning, a lot of like a vision that you saw and you brought into fruition, but also just this idea of like your energy. Like we just met for the first time. We've only spoken on the phone. So which has happened with a lot of people actually who have come on. And I think it's because I'm not afraid to talk to anybody, but obviously you were someone that was highly recommended from Rachel. And I missed reaching out to you because I was a little overwhelmed with things that I had going on. And then she's like, have you talked to my friend Lindsay yet? And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get a hold of her. But there's just something about your energy. And I want to say, I don't know if you're like an energy person, but I'm an energy person. There's like a sense of calm to you. I don't know if you feel that.
I think that's probably the first time I've ever heard that.
No, there's a sense of like calm and sort of determination and also just very like clear-headedness about you. And I always find that like even when I met Rachel and just how well-spoken she was, and I thought, you are not your past. And something that we've talked about a lot. And I want to talk a bit more about you being like a female business owner and an entrepreneur and like being a mom at 21. And I can't imagine having a child at 21 years old. So thinking back to who I was at 21, I'm like, oh my goodness. But I do think that sometimes a lot of people, you're forced to grow up when something like that happens, right? And I'm sure that that's what happened.
Yes.
You became a mom at 21, but you still went through a period of struggle, right?
Yes.
You mentioned 10 years to me. There was like a 10-year period where you were really working to like get yourself into a better space. So why don't we start with, becoming a mom at 21, living on government assistance, and then the things that happen up after that, up to this point. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just, having my daughter, I was 20 when I got pregnant, 21 when I gave birth to her. The relationship I was in with her biological father was super toxic. We were both like, partying, using drugs, drinking, selling drugs. So that was kind of like the beginning to the end for me. When on my 21st birthday, a week prior to that, the Allegheny County narcotics agents had raided our house. So I was actually on the run, and my daughter's biological father he was arrested and he was in prison. So on my 21st birthday, I was actually arraigned. I turned myself in. So I met the judge with my father and my attorney and turned myself in and was charged with 4 felony drug charges and conspiracy. And at that time, I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. So that was kind of the first really big consequence that I faced related to my substance abuse and the things that I was involved in. So I obviously gave birth to my daughter a couple months later, and I would like to say that was kind of like the end all be all when I turned my life around, but it really became the moment where I just folded under pressure and didn't really know how to handle my circumstances. Like looking in hindsight, it's easier to look back on that and kind of understand what happened to you. But I kind of just self-destructed. And 3 months after my daughter was born, I was arrested for my first DUI. 2 weeks after that, I was arrested for my second DUI. And 2.5 years after that, I had been arrested for my third DUI. So that was kind of like the 4 big events that took me down, so to speak. But in the midst of that, I always say I was like, had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because the birth of my daughter did turn on a switch for me. Like I always had I always wanted to pursue nursing. I always wanted to be a nurse since I was in middle school. So I started taking prerequisites at community college. And at that time I had gone to an alternative high school. So when I did the entry exam for community college, I tested like the lowest possible score. So even like my math electives, I had to do arithmetic. So I was taking a class where I was, adding 3-digit numbers together, like that's how far down I was. And it wasn't because I wasn't intelligent. It was just because that's, where I was at in the environment that I was in, And so I just started kind of doing these prerequisite courses, and I was trying to produce something in my life for my child and myself, but I was also, headed down very quickly the other path to that. And it just kind of came to a head with all of those convictions. So
wow, yeah, I can't imagine sort of what was happening as well on the other side of things with your family and what you were getting from that side of it, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think as a mother, I can kind of empathize with what I've probably put my mother through. My daughter she's 18 years old. She actually just graduated.
I saw she just graduated.
Yeah, she just graduated high school. She is nothing like I was growing up. I was like a juvenile delinquent, and she is very much on the right path. She's very successful. She did great in school. She has a bright future, So, I mean, just the torment I put my parents through, it's kind of crazy to think about, like how much worry they had for a really long time, And then when I had my own daughter, they worried not just about me, but also my child,
Of course.
So they've been very active in my daughter's life as well. So yeah, I don't know what I can do to repay them other than just like continue to do the right thing, and create impact with what I've gone through. But yeah, I put them through a lot for sure.
Of course. I mean, but they stood by you.
They did.
And
they absolutely did.
I think it's just so tremendous to me to hear your story and, having a decade in criminal and professional monitoring programs.
Yes.
So what was that like?
Yes. So with my criminal convictions, the drug charges, they were null and void. My daughter's biological father went to prison. He pled guilty, no contest. So they dropped the charges on me. And if that was not the case, I would have several felonies at this point. So for the DUIs specifically, I was in, probation for a really long time. I was in court-ordered drug and alcohol treatment, probation, house arrest. I lost my driver's license for 7 years. I spent over a year on house arrest. I had to get the, breathalyzer in my car and do all of those things. But subsequently, while that was going on, I had gotten into nursing school and I was pursuing a nursing degree. So part of becoming a nurse required me to do monitoring through the Pennsylvania State Board of Nursing. And initially, I was a dental assistant prior to nursing. So that kind of caught up to me because of my criminal charges and the EFTA. It's an expanded functions dental assistant license that I carried.
Okay.
So I got involved with the State Board of Dentistry, which was the PHP, PHMP maybe as well. I forget now, but because of that license, so I had started in monitoring for that reason. And then going through nursing school, I assumed that when I graduated nursing school, they would kind of pick up where I left off. And, I was actually in nursing school when I was arrested for my third DUI. So when that happened, my dental license was suspended. And I was still going through, my nursing school degree. I was still pursuing that, but I was on house arrest. The State Board of Nursing, I knew when I graduated nursing that I was not going to be able to become a nurse, So I started to try to work with the PNAP program, which at that time was the Peer Nurse Assisting Program, which would monitor nurses. And they had kind of already dropped me and weren't really willing to work with me because I was non-compliant initially.
Yeah.
And Kathy Simpson was she ran it at the time, and she actually was the first person that gave me the opportunity to get back into that program. So I started monitoring through them, and that was like a 3-year period. And when I graduated nursing school, I had to continue that monitoring, and they initially declined my application to become a nurse and sit for my boards. So I had to go through like this whole monitoring, period of time. And that ended up being a couple months short of 4 years before I was legally allowed to sit for my nursing boards after I had graduated as a nurse. So I graduated in 2011, but was never officially a nurse till 2015.
Whoa.
Yes. And then when I graduated nursing, or when I took my boards and successfully passed them, I had to re-enter into that program and do it all over again. So that's where the 10 years of monitoring kind of.
How did that mentally affect you? And like, what did you do to sort of just stay the course?
Yeah, I mean, so when I got that call and I realized like they first denied me and that I would have to do this long-term monitoring before they would even reconsider another application. And that involved going to Harrisburg and sitting in front of the Board of Nursing in like a courtroom, It's super intimidating. I mean, yeah, I was angry. I felt hopeless. I felt like I was never going to get through any of it. But when I started this journey, when I really took accountability for the position I was in and decided I was going to do whatever it took to get on the other side of that, I really meant it. And at that time, making that decision for myself, I didn't realize how hard that or long that was going to be.
Yeah.
But I was really dedicated to that decision, and I stuck through that in spite of everything that came my way. And it did. It turned it out to be a decade of effort. Yeah.
Accountability, like the minute you said that, I thought that's such a huge component to all of this, right? And a lot of people struggle with that, taking the accountability, because then they go backwards into the whole beating themselves up and blaming themselves. And, that can definitely be a weird sort of whirlpool effect when it comes to what you're going through. I don't know. I think to me, talking about like mental health is such a huge aspect of all this, right? So it's always interesting to me how some people they're like, nope, I realized like I had to keep forging forward. Like it's almost like you just had this tunnel vision. Like you were just like, nope, I have to keep doing this. And if this is what I have to do, then this is what I have to do, right?
Yeah.
Decade.
I mean, I think so, like the getting sober part is probably the easier part. It's like most of us end up in these programs with criminal, convictions, or, we're in a lot of trouble. We have to work our way out of whatever we've put ourselves in, so it's accountability is twofold. Accountability is I'm accountable for my actions and what landed me in the position that I'm at, but I'm also accountable for my inaction. So it's like whatever happens moving forward is really up to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get stuck in what that looks like because, I mean, there's a lot of injustice in the process, right? And it's really difficult just in general. So that's hard enough, and I had a really good support system with my family, and probably most people don't have that. So that was really a catalyst to helping me go forward. But I think a lot of people stay in that victim mentality of, poor me, this is where I'm at. How do you expect me to move forward? And I think there's a part of our society that feeds into that as well. And people don't take accountability for their lack of effort moving forward. Like you really have to be 100% committed, and what that is going to entail is everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
It's painful. It's, it's going to take a long time. There's a lot of things that are going to be required of you, So I think that's where a lot of people just fall off because it's easier to stay stuck. It's a lot harder to pull yourself out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've had a lot of friends in my life who have been in situations. I'm like, listen, you either want to make a change or you don't.
Yes.
And in order to make change, you're going to have to get really uncomfortable.
Yes.
And a lot of people have fear. Immediately feeling is anxiety and fear. And I said, you got to lean into the fear.
Yes.
Because you have to see the finish line. It's interesting to me because I almost feel like you are that type of person that once you decided that you did want to get into, so what you do now is technically referred to as like you do injections, but what else do you do at your business?
So I own a medical spa, Scrubd Esthetics. It's located in Cranberry Township. So I am a nurse practitioner. I focus on the injectables, IV infusions. I also do permanent makeup, which is how I started my business initially. And then I also have an esthetician, Ava. She's amazing. So she does all of our facials, peels, microneedling. Like she focuses on the skincare component of the business. And yeah, that's what we do.
I love that. I'm like, I'm into like the whole thing now. I've never had injections or anything. I'm always like nervous about doing anything because I'm like such a animated person, and you hear things and I'm like, no, but I'm definitely more into like the skincare stuff, like
Yes.
hydrating my skin. When I was younger, I always thought that after I wash my face, I wanted it to like dry out. So everything could like get out. And that was like the opposite of what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to actually be hydrating my skin and putting lotion on and all of these things. So I've definitely gotten more into all that stuff. And so I need to come see you for sure.
Yes, for sure.
I haven't had a facial in a very long time, but I need one. So
Well, Ava is the best, and we
Yes.
have lots of facial options.
okay,
So
awesome. But I just love that it's this thing that you knew, and you were still working full time as a nurse, right? When you kind of started doing this on the side, and I'm guessing, but you can tell us, like the thought behind that was to obviously start building that reputation that that's what you were going to be doing. But I'm sure to start a new business, right? Money comes into play. So one thing I did want to ask you, if you're comfortable answering, is did you have any issues with getting a business, like getting a space with anything that had been on your record, or were a lot of things sort of already off of your record? Like, was there any hurdles there that you had to, jump?
yeah, I mean, with somebody with a criminal background, there's always hurdles in everything, and my last criminal conviction was in 2009. But when I went to grad school to become a nurse practitioner, there was multiple colleges that turned me down. That I wasn't fit, for that position. Even the college that I did attend, when I came around to doing my clinical rotations, they had a board advisory meeting to determine my fitness for those clinical rotations, even though I had already finished the master's part of that program. So it's always something that I have to discuss, disclose, explain. I have like a whole folder on my computer of personal statements, personal statement letters. I can just like pull one and change the address at this point because I always have to explain myself. And yeah, I guess, at one point it was really disheartening, but at this point, like for me now, it's just part of the deal. It's kind of like I'm okay to stand in who I am now. In terms of my personal business and starting that, there's no real issue in starting an LLC with a criminal background or, starting the business that I did. But, I did have an experience where I had competitors that, I openly share my story on social media. I obviously talk on podcasts and do all the things. So I'm not like, this isn't a secret, know. And I had some competitors that took that information and gave it to somebody who I was partnering in business with in a way to try to deter them from working with me, to kind of sabotage my start in business. So those kind of things have happened. It's just kind of comes with the territory, So.
It's unfortunate though that we live in a world where there are people out there who are so dead set on holding people on something that happened so long ago and not looking at the work that you'd put in since then, right? And that you were continuing to put in. And like you said, I'm like looking at professional monitoring programs. You went to Harrisburg. And that's just like one little thing, but it's, I don't know if I'm the type of person that maybe just forgives too easily, or I trust people and like talking about your energy. I'm someone that can kind of pick up on something like that. Why would you go and get a master's degree? Why would you continue to go to school if you weren't serious about changing your life?
It's like, I get it. I get why these monitoring programs exist. I earned my place in them. The PNAP program and the people in that organization, when I was involved in it, saved my life, point blank and simple.
Yeah.
That intervention truly saved my life. I always say that nursing saved my life. That whole experience, I would not be where I am or who I am. I probably wouldn't be alive, to be honest, without that happening to me.
Yeah.
So, but I also understand, like, when I'm in a monitor, like going to find a nursing position, I have no driver's license. I have a 4-year history gap in from when I graduated to when I'm applying. I have to explain that. I'm currently in monitoring. I have a criminal background. I have restrictions on my license. I can't pass narcotics. There's all these things, right? There's obvious questions about, am I fit to be a nurse in this circumstance, take care of patients, have the responsibilities I'm supposed to have? Like, those are warranted questions. The frustrating part is like, I I'm here to prove myself and right my wrongs. I've paid my dues to society in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I've done everything I can humanly do to recover. And I am an example of what that can look like.
Yes.
So it becomes a question, and I don't really know what the answer is, but what the question is like, when is enough enough? When have I proven enough? Like, this is going to follow me forever. You know, the only way I can get these criminal convictions taken off my record is a governor's pardon, which I have sought and I was initially declined. I will try to attempt to do that again. But even the part on my nursing license is public record, and that is not expungible in any way. You know, so it's always going to follow you.
Well, I feel like this happens so often when people come in here and sit with me. It's like you're reading my mind and that was kind of my point to asking you that was like, when is enough enough?
Yeah.
Because you are sitting here as an example, a shining example, right? This episode is brought to you by R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Eagle podcast. Be sure to click the link in bio for your discount for BetterHelp Therapy online. 10% off your first month. You got it together, girl. I mean, and I know that people are like, oh, obviously a lot of us, we all have our things, right? We have our things that we struggle with. Everybody struggles. I never want to diminish anyone's struggle, whatever that is. I'm constantly amazed by the people that I'm meeting in this experience, in my experience here in this position, and having these conversations where I'm like, wow. I mean, to me, it's like you could be traveling around giving TED Talks and, you know, inspiring. I mean, I know that you did go to, it wasn't North Catholic, it was North Allegheny, right? North Allegheny High School. Mm-hmm. And they have a program there. What's that program called again that you spoke at?
It's the Gold program. So it is for 8th grade girls, and it's the Girls of Leadership and Development. And their focus is to discuss issues for young adolescent girls within that age range, that 12 to 14-year-old age range, but also help them transition into high school. So North Allegheny was my alma mater, and I was actually kicked out of the school in 10th grade, where I finished my high school education at an alternative program. So the Gold program, they hold their event in the school I was actually kicked out of. So it was very much a full circle moment.
Yes.
Yeah, it gives me chills just saying that
I
out
love
loud.
that.
Yeah,
I love that so much.
It was really an amazing experience to go back there.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the testament to everything that you said. Like you took accountability for everything that you had done and ownership, and you were willing to continue to, you know, have those people that were maybe going to come in and be skeptical, but the enough is enough, you know, really is like sort of where I think where we sort of, it's like a gray area sometimes. It's not black and white. It's definitely a gray area in that, you know, you went off to be a nurse and you did years of schooling and then realized like from extreme burnout and that you did get discrimination from your peers related to your recovery efforts. And that is something that has always surprised me. And when I say always, I mean in these last, you know, let's see how many months. I've started having conversations in December. So it's in 7 months I've learned that there's still a lot of that going on in the world, right? It's not just, you know, we experience things in high school that prepare us for the real world when it comes to judgment from other people. So how was that one of the catalysts for you to be like, you know what, like I need to start going on and moving into being my own boss and having my own business? Was that sort of the thought process? Or
yeah, I mean, I always had a desire to own my own business, and I had put effort towards that in different ways that just didn't turn into anything, you know. So as I was working as an ICU nurse, my initial goal was to go to grad school to become a nurse anesthetist. And for a lot of reasons, like just the job itself, the lifestyle that I would have had if I would have pursued that path, I knew that wasn't what I wanted. And I had these, I don't know, like we talked about earlier about how you know you're meant to do something and you have this calling inside that just will never silence. And that's just what I was feeling. And then, I actually worked at Butler Hospital as a ICU nurse it was actually a float pool nurse for several years. And when I had that job, that's when I originally started sharing my story. And I originally did it through a blog that I was writing. And I mean, in terms of the response that I received was always really positive. And then when I had transitioned into another job in a different ICU in a different hospital system, that blog was still out there and I was starting to speak a little bit. And this was just very new to sharing my story. So at that time I was very kind of still vulnerable, kind of still looking for like people to give me a good response, like you're still nervous about putting yourself out there in that way. But I also felt driven to do that because I felt that my story mattered and it was going to be impactful in some way. So I just didn't know what that looked like. And I just started kind of sharing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with anything, you're going to have a critic. It doesn't matter what it is. Critics just exist, especially in the social media era that we live in. Information and people's stories and things is just so out there, So the position that I was working at, there was a group of nurses there that, had found my blog, found it on like my Facebook page or something like that. And I mean, 3 days into me working there, I'm still on orientation. My manager called me into her office and she doesn't even have social media. So she was like really confused and really didn't understand what was happening. But she's like, I've been given this information that you write this content about, like basically the way that they had given it to her was that I have an issue with drugs and alcohol and that they're concerned about the safety of the unit and who I am. And like they presented it as if I was like using drugs,
yes, currently.
Right. And it didn't surprise me, but it was like the first time I experienced that. And I just told my manager, I shared my entire story with her. I gave her the URL to read my blog. I didn't have to conceal that information to her upon hiring because I had already completed my monitoring program at that point. I started there in 2019 and I finished monitoring in 2018. So the only part of that organization that even knew my background was the HR department, which I had to, obviously conceal my criminal background to. So I just explained to her like what I had been through, like the bullet point version of it. And she read the blog and pulled me back into her office a couple of days later and gave me some really good feedback and said she was really impressed with what I was able to overcome. And she even acknowledged that she understands that the people that were doing this, had a vendetta and it was malicious in intent. And she understood that. And her solution to that was just ignore them. And, they're just jealous of you. And, which is true. But like when you're working in a professional setting and that's your administrator and they're acknowledging that they understand this is happening in their unit, but they're not taking the steps to protect their staff or against discrimination. I mean, we're a protected population.
Mm-hmm.
There's laws against that, and policies in place. And I think that's, I could talk about this a lot, but I think that's the biggest issue is that these things happen in different, whether it's professional position or whatever. And the higher ups are always aware of who it is and that it's happening. And I wasn't the first person they have done this to. I mean, I started to find out that there had been a number of nurses that had left that floor right before I started related to bullying from that group of women.
I was just going to say bullying.
I mean, these are grown-ups. So I was like devastated. My feelings were really hurt.
Of course.
But I'm also very like aggressive. So I don't...
You're also like, I'm not going to take...
I don't have a problem defending myself, but I guess I was just taken off course because I hadn't experienced that before. And I'm glad I did because now it's like I'm unfazed completely.
Yes, of
like,
course.
I'll carry the torch. You can say anything you want about me. It's really not going to affect me.
It's almost like that was maybe your like enough is enough moment.
Oh, it was.
Like that was your like, you know what? I don't have time for this. Like, I'm here to do a job. And were they looking for something? Because I'm not the type of person that goes and meets someone and then goes and like, maybe I'll see them on Facebook and be like, oh, I'm going to friend them on Facebook. But then I don't go through their Facebook and look for things.
I mean, it's really bizarre,
out.
right?
It is.
Yeah, but it's a thing. Like I think,
a thing.
Especially women, we've all experienced that. Like usually it's in middle school. And then when you're like an adult, you're like, this shouldn't be a thing anymore. But unfortunately, it really is.
Yeah.
And that was like I've experienced other circumstances like that. But Yeah, I mean, for me, I was already burnt out. Like, to be very honest, everything I had gone through to become a nurse had burnt me out. So when I became a nurse, then worked in the field of nursing, which will burn you out in and of itself, it was just boiled over for me. And this is pre-pandemic, so I had decided, like, I'm not going to go to nurse anesthetist school. I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. I want to do injecting. I'm going to open a medical spa. This is a plan. I'm going to pursue that through, starting a permanent makeup studio now, which I can do now. And I'm going to work my way out of this position. And with that specific job, that was the catalyst to making that decision and really going for it, because I had a decision to make. I was either going to fight that fight or fight my own fight. And what I really wanted was not to be on that unit. And it's like, there are people out there fighting that horizontal violence fight, but that's not my torch to bear. Like, that's not my cross to carry. Like, that's not the fight I'm meant to fight. I think I fit into, being an example of, what I've been able to overcome for what that is. But
yes,
I just realized, like, there's just no point in staying on this unit. Like, the administration in of itself, HR, like, there was a woman, she was a secretary for us, and she came up to me and she was crying and she says, I read your story and I just want to let you know that this gave me I can relate to your story, and this gave me the inspiration to pursue nursing because I never thought I could. And I thought, oh my God, that's why we do this. That's why I'm sharing my story.
Yes.
And then she followed it up with, but I really want you to know that you should watch your back, because this is what happened. And she tells me a story about a night shift where this group of women was taking my story on my social media, my blog, and forcing people to read it, including her, and like making fun of me and just carrying on, and apparently had said some things where she felt that I was in danger and should watch my back. So when I brought that to my administrator, I said, look, this is no longer like something I'm willing just to ignore and pretend like I'm just going to go about my work day. Like, I worked really hard to become a nurse, and I have somebody telling me I should watch my back. What are these women capable of doing?
Absolutely.
And that's really crazy to me that happens. But yeah, I mean, that was just, at that point I was like, this is not even worth it. This is not even where I want to be. You know what I mean? So like, I'm out. Well, and I left.
I mean, good for you for standing up and saying that, because that's a lot of people are scared to even have that conversation and say, this isn't okay. Like, this is not okay.
Yes.
I made mistakes, right? I made mistakes, but I have worked really, really hard to, right those wrongs.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I believe that is. Nobody does the work that you have done, and sits there, and this pitch deck that I'm looking at, your goal, your mission, your purpose, your values, like, how many just people in this world have the time or have taken the time to sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and write down my goals and, my values in life and my mission and all. A lot of people don't do that, right?
So it's like,
and it puts you into a classification above all of that gossip. That's
what I was going to say. And I thank you. I appreciate that. But that's what I try to tell people that are afraid of experiencing something similar, is like, if these women are willing to act that way, they're not even on the same playing field as you. And that's why they're angry. Like, you've got to be, and it may not be to the extent of that, like just putting yourself out on social media, like, sharing your reels of our skincare stuff. There's going to be somebody who criticizes that, or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, it just is going to exist. So you have got to be comfortable, like you said, getting uncomfortable and taking that criticism. I mean, it's not all going to be positive. It's just the way of the world, unfortunately. And you just got to stand true in who you are. And I think that's like, again, part of what I'm meant to do is be that example to people that are like me, that are going through something, that it's like, if I can do it, so can you. Because there were people that, when I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, I saw as examples. I heard their stories, and they gave me permission. So it's important that we stand in that.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said permission. It's a lot of times like that is what it feels like, right? Like, you need permission to be able to succeed.
Yeah.
And it's not that we are saying that the gossipers and the ones who are, frankly, at times a little scary, right? It can be a little scary to know that someone out there is like, really just has a hate for you, and they don't recognize that we're all human. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of operating on this, like, it's up to me, right? Like, it's your torch to bear. It's to carry. It's your torch to carry. And it's the same for them. It's not that they can't If there's something that you are reacting to because you're jealous of it or you want it, then go do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that whole saying that you can either sit here and you can be mad about it and you can talk about everyone else that's going out and doing it, or you could go out and do it yourself.
Yeah. And I just,
yeah.
I think it's, the permission thing is like, you have to stop looking for other people to give you permission, and you have to give yourself permission. And like when I told my daughter, like she experienced bullying in high school, and I've told my daughter over and over again, like, this is going to exist it's going to look differently throughout your life, but this is always going to be something that is going to exist. It's just human nature. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to deal with it. And, you have to just give yourself permission to not care. If like, that's where I was like, this fight isn't mine. Like, those are not my people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go find them. And like with people nowadays in social media, you can literally search the people you're motivated by. Like half my mentors don't even know me. They come from podcasts or business things. You know what I mean? Like
Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're all my best friends and don't even know it. Like, just find your people, find where you fit in. Like, those people don't matter. And it's like, we seek validation from our peers because we're humans. We're meant to be in community with each other. But if that's not your community, then go find who is.
Yeah.
Like, those people don't matter. Those women mean nothing to me. They have nothing to do with,
you're like,
with my business. Like, and it's kind of funny too, because I always laugh at this part because there's still a couple of them. They're watching my TikTok videos of my facial videos. Like, I can see who watches and they're there. Yeah. I've had one that reached out about employment. I've had one that's reached out about receiving services at my business, and they were a part of that. It's just mind boggling. So it's like, they can't stop watching you. Like, they hate you because you're doing wrong. Then they hate you when you become successful. So you just have to just do you.
Yeah, you have to
you just got to silence the noise around you and do you. And if you find you're in a circumstance that no longer serves you, move, leave, pivot. You can change anything.
Gosh, I feel like I needed to sit here with you today and talk to you and hear all this because in my life I've had quite a few pivots. The most drastic pivot I had was in 2021 when I left my fitness career of 12 years and one of the companies I'd been with for 10 years and realized like it was my identity.
Yeah.
Like it was who I was.
Oh my God. Yes.
And I didn't realize it until I left.
Yes.
And then what ended up happening after that was I went from being very fit, and very determined to like, I stopped working out. And didn't realize at the time that there were things that were just starting to come to the surface, that I had to deal with, and did quite a few moves in those next like 2 years, which is the catalyst for what brought me back to Butler. Because a lot of people who have talked to me will say that, and it's almost similar to what you had. Well, why'd you go to school to be a registered nurse? And you spent all this time dedicating, and then you're like, okay, I'm actually going to go do this.
Yeah.
And you did say a lot of people were, devil's advocates, like in a positive way, people close to you who were your people, who you talk to about it. But it's like, we need those people in our lives who, sort of do that thing where they say, well, you work so hard. And it's like, I understand that might be your fear, that maybe you went to school for, 8 years and you worked really, really hard. And to you, like, that's it. Right. But that's not me. And in this moment, I just need to be accepted for me and what I'm doing, and that I'm willing to take that risk. And I go through life with, I can't have this. What if I had done that? What if I had tried? What if I don't subscribe to that. I just don't. I feel like there are a lot of women who are listening who have probably thought about being their own business owners or, going out and starting a whole new thing on their own and working endless hours. And you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of things. I'm sure you sacrificed a lot of maybe going on vacation, or who knows, like, what would you say to someone who's listening? And aside from like what your past, right now, being a business owner and being who you are and a boss, right? What would you say to someone who's listening who is, I want to start my own business, but I don't know where to start, and I'm not sure if it's something that I'm even capable of doing? Like, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I mean, those are the two main questions I get in my DMs every day. And it's usually, you know, mostly nurses that are interested in aesthetics. And they say, you know, like, how do I get started? I don't know where to begin. And all of those things. And so that's part of kind of where I think I'm moving to is part of, I mean, we'll give you a little sneak peek. So at the end of this year.
Yeah, she mentioned it. You did mention it last time we talked. So I'm like, woo, I'm so glad you're talking about it.
Yeah. So we are in the process of building out an academy, and it will focus on training new injectors. And that's, you know, mostly nurses, because I'm a nurse. So that's like my biggest following, but nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, medical or physicians, anybody who's interested in becoming an injector, getting into the aesthetics. And part of that is just mentoring those individuals and what it's going to take in terms of the skill set, but then also those that are interested in pursuing business. That's a whole different realm. Like that's a whole different skill set. Like you have to learn the skill of injecting, and then you have to learn business, and there's a lot. And I just think, you know, people don't take action because they're afraid. And like, there's nothing I can say to somebody to make them take action. I just really think that you have to think about what your life goals are. Like, what does your highest level self look like? Who is she? What is her job? What is her lifestyle? What is her home? What is her relationship with her family? Who are her people? Like, what does she look like? I know who she looks like. I can smell her perfume. Like, I have manifested and envisioned this woman, and she has grown in this vision of mine through my life experience. But like, I know exactly who she is. And that's what drives me towards that vision. And I'm just wrapping my business and my life currently around what it's going to take for me to achieve that. And it's freaking scary, man. There's a lot of it that sucks. The majority of it you don't want to do. And it's like the motivation where you're like, aha, I've got this, I'm doing it. And you're driving forward. Like, once that fades away, you got to figure out what's going to drive you from the mundane day-to-day kind of stuff, or figuring out the hard things, or getting past the failure, because you're going to fail, if you want to call it that, more than you're going to succeed, right? Like, it's just these, like, it's not really failure. It's just these stepping stones of figuring it out and pivoting and changing and doing the next thing. And there's nothing I can say to you that's going to make you do that.
Yeah.
You know, I can show you, but like, you've got to take the action. Like, that's with anything, whether it's changing your life or starting a business or, you know, whatever, like fitness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're bringing on weight loss services. I recently lost 40 pounds. I was doing weight loss injections. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And some people criticize, like, you know, health and fitness, like gym and diet are the only, you know, modalities to achieving health. And I disagree with that. I think that there's a lot, but the biggest question with that I get from people is like, well, when you stop these injections, do you gain the weight back? And I was like, the injections aren't the solution. It's just a stepping stone. Like, you still have got to put the work in. Mm-hmm. And if you refrain from doing that, you're going to gain the weight back. It doesn't matter how you lose it.
Yeah.
So it's like, everybody wants the quick.
Yes.
Solution.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. But it's like, that's not real. It's not real. It's people that you see that are successful. It's not overnight. There's no overnight successes.
I posted something recently about that, and I actually lost about 10 followers on Instagram. I posted about, you know, I'm really sick of seeing these ads where it's like, in 3 weeks you can lose 35 pounds. And I was like, whoa, hold up. Like, hold up. Now, I'm not saying that I haven't done enough research into the different supplements that are out there. They're supposed to kind of, you know, boost your metabolism or your energy or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that those aren't legit, you know, right. But I do believe in the marathon rather than the sprint.
Yes.
And I use that reference a lot because I actually was a sprinter. I ran in college. Oh, wow. And to me, it's looking back on my life and all of the things that I was for a very long time an instant gratification person.
Oh, like, me too.
I wanted to be able to like practice something once, and then the next time I had it. Yes. And I think a lot of that came from my dance background too, because it's like we had to be perfect. So there's a lot of things to work through there. But something you said like about the fear and the failure is that what a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, when you're fearful of something, but you're like, all right, I'm going to try it. And you have that first little teeny tiny failure, mm-hmm. the first little thing that goes wrong. that's a test, right? It's like, how bad do you really want this? You know,
Yeah.
it's par for the course. Like failure is a part of success. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you that, but it just is. And
It is.
you're going to have little hiccups. You're going to have things. You're going to have people who are going to talk about you
Yes.
and badmouth you and make you feel make you question your decision, right?
Yes.
Or even just like your worth.
Yes.
No one gets to determine your worth except for you.
Except for God.
Well, and that too.
Because you don't always know your worth.
That's true. And I just
That's
think
what I
that,
believe.
you know, I just think that you have so much conviction behind like what you're saying. And I'm so excited for your academy. I think that it's going to, girl, you're going to be on like Good Morning America or something someday. I swear. Like I'm a
That's
manifester
cool. I hope
too.
so.
I'm a manifester too, but I feel like I've met some really remarkable people in this
Yeah.
process, and I'm just blown away by like, wow, I need to keep digging for you're a needle in a haystack. I mean,
Aw,
you
thank
are,
you.
know, there are some people that I have talked to and I'm like, hey, there are more out there and I want to talk to them, you know, but
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people are fearful.
I mean, I think it's,
And you understand that.
Everybody who's got a good story or, some level of success in their life, whatever they've achieved, right, has usually got a really great story behind it. It's like the underdogs, all of us, we not only are we able, but we excel, and it's really cool to hear people's stories like that. Because again, it gives you permission to obtain that thing you want in your life. And it's like, I'm really good at, driving through fear and tackling the next thing. Like, again, I'm very rebellious. Like I'm here for that fight, but like I struggle with things too. Like, with fitness thing component, I'm still trying to develop a fitness routine into my lifestyle that I can be consistent with. Like I have to get up really early, and that's the only time I can go to the gym, because once my day started, we're gone.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
it.
hate it. I hate it.
Oh, trust me.
Like-
I used to teach like 6 a.m. classes.
Yeah, like
and I've been trying to get myself back into getting up at 5.
it's
Like,
so I can get
it's
up, man,
hard.
but I'm not trying to lift. Like it is so hard. And my husband, he just does it. That's his thing. Like
Yeah.
that's what drives him. That's like his therapy,
Yeah.
It is not mine. My therapy is sleeping in, slow mornings, coffee, and
Yeah.
so it's like you just, it's baby steps, right? As long as you're moving
Yeah.
forward, you're going to move forward. Like
Yeah.
10 years is 10 years. It's going to pass in spite of what I decide to do with it, and for me, I was more afraid of staying where I was, because
Wow.
that really sucked. Like I lost everything, and
Ooh, girl.
I just was not willing to stay there. I couldn't do it.
But recognizing, and you knew that like you had to make a change. And I think your daughter had a lot to do with that, right?
Oh, for sure.
She had a lot to do with that.
For
And I
sure.
mean, seeing your photos like from her graduation, I'm just like, geez, like people need to see this. They need to see this.
Yeah.
And why are there people that are out there that they're finding things that aren't even part of the story just because maybe they're just not happy with their lives? And what we can't do anything about that, right? I can't change how someone's going to react to me. Or there's a saying that is, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. And the first time someone said that to me, I got a little mad, because I was like, what does that even mean? Like, it doesn't give them the right to be mean to me. But then I took a step away from it, and I kind of realized that I was like, oh, I get it now. I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm worrying so much about what this negativity over here, right? That I'm not focusing on all of the other things, right, that I should be focusing on. So, with your experience, your first year of business, you grow six figures. You get the clapping. I mean, you should.
I love that.
You honestly should have gotten the clapping a long time ago.
my
There were
gosh.
many other moments, but
That's
like
amazing.
I've been trying to. I always like it. There's always a moment where I'm like, "Yep, this is it. Here's the clapping part." That's huge.
Yeah, it sounds
I mean-
really sexy, but anybody who's
You're like, but it's
I'm
not.
I'm about to make it sound really not sexy.
Girl, give it to us. We want a raw, real. Give it to us.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first financial goal for my business was to grow 6 figures in revenue. And when you do it, you realize you're like, oh, that's not really anything. And after you take all your deductions, like what you're really left over, like is not 6 figures. And when you first start a business, you're not taking a distribution for yourself. Like it's just, you learn very quickly that 6 figures is not 6 figures, you know? And, but it was still more money than I've ever seen in a bank account on a tax return. And, you know, then you realize like, oh, I don't get a tax return this year. I pay taxes this year. So it's just, I mean, you realize like, I think that's like a misconception a lot of people have with entrepreneurship is that it's super sexy. You're automatically a millionaire and, you know, good for you. Must be nice, you know, but it's really extremely hard to start and grow a business. Most don't succeed at it, like statistically. And it just requires a lot of work. Like not everybody's built for it. And that's okay too, you know? But I mean, I think it's like anything, like whatever, if you're striving for excellence in your life in some way, it's not meant to be easy. And you know, it's interesting what you were talking about before is like recreating yourself and pivoting. And like, there's so many versions of myself that have had to die to become the next version and to just get to that next level, like getting sober and becoming that person outside of the initial person I was. That's a whole different person. I had to leave all of the people, places, things, reinvent myself. Being a nurse, I had to reinvent myself. Being a business owner, I had to reinvent myself. Like I've reinvented myself so many times, and it's like you mentioned, it's going to be lonely in spite of who's around you. That process of personal growth is independent, period. If you have a good support system, that's awesome, but it's still going to be lonely. And it's just going to require you to figure it out. And that's where you really learn yourself. And one of the things that when we were talking just triggered me was everybody who starts with you is not going to stay with you. And it doesn't even have to be like the, you know, the work of the nurse bullies of the world. It's like I've lost, like, I mean, specifically one really good friend, but friends in different aspects of my life, but like just even through business, because certain people just like can't be on that journey with you. And it could be jealousy, or it just could be like they're just not meant for that next level version of yourself. So you got to be okay with letting it go. And I think we're all afraid of change. Yeah. And we all just want to be accepted, man. Like we want that validation from other people, like regardless of who says that or not, like we do. Yes. But you got to be okay with just knowing when to let something go that's no longer for you, or that people aren't going to stick around, especially like, hey, when it's a relationship, you know, like that's the hardest one. Like you're devoting somebody you think you're going to spend your life with or whatever, and it ends up not being the case. It's really, really hard. Yeah. You know? And I've had 2 pretty significant relationships in my adult life that ended, and both, what's interesting is both were around my birthday. Which is always like, it's like every year I'm waiting. I'm like, oh no. What's happening this year, you know? And there's been a lot of stuff this year too for me, but I knew that they were done. It was like almost an instant, this instant moment of this is done. Now the last one, it was 2019 when it ended, and you know, there's been some time, and hey, like, hope he's well, and hope, you know, whatever. It's like I'm like Pocahontas in the wind waving, you know. I'm just like, bye, you know. It's fine now, like I'm fine now, but I mean, I went through some really, really low dark times. Oh yeah. I mean, I Sigourney Weavered, I Demi Moored, I shaved my head, you know, like legit during COVID, shaved my head for charity. But it was this thing that it was part of me taking back like who I was and owning who I was, and having been in a situation where someone was taking that away from me, whether it's like the bullies or, you know, the relationship, that I started to become this person that I wasn't proud of. And, you know, there's so much of our stories that are like intertwine, right? That we can relate. And the biggest thing is that I know that I'm not alone, because I always have those people that are like, oh, you're not alone. I'm like, I get it. But as a woman at 44 years old who's single, I've never been married. I've never, you know, and I've dedicated a lot of my life to relationships. Like I'm 100%. When I'm in it, I'm in it. Same. And when it doesn't come back to you, you're like,
I'm confused, you know? I'm confused here because we're having this conversation and you're almost like kind of gaslighting to me to make me think I'm crazy because I feel that you're not really there. So recognizing that in my journey too. So it's the same, like losing relationships when you're doing things. You've got to sort of own your, you know, your purpose, your mission, your goals.
Yes.
And yeah, just be willing to let people sort of, you know, let people walk away, right? Let people sort of, if they don't believe, okay, that's fine. Like I gotta go over here and do it. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't like to just sit and be like, oh, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
Can we like not?
Yeah.
So it's just so crazy to me because I think that not enough people in this world realize their worth. And I think for you, like speaking and even like talking about it is probably one of the biggest things, right? Even if it's just going to therapy, finding a therapist, or there's so many groups these days. I feel like besides like AA and NA, was there anything like that as well that you sort of took part in, or is therapy a huge part of your?
So, I mean, gosh, I'd like to say that like I could have definitely did well in therapy, like really early on in life. I think that's one of the disadvantages I had was nobody guided me to that place. It wasn't really like, not that it wasn't an option, but it wasn't like you should go see a therapist. Like with me specifically, like all my criminal convictions led me down the whole like drug and alcohol path. So like my first initial experience in some type of like therapy was drug and alcohol rehab, like in-person rehab, AA meetings. I did a little bit of NA, mainly AA, and that was initially court ordered. So like,
oh wow.
Yeah, it was not by choice, and I was, you know, dragged there by my hair, and I had to do that. That was a requirement for me to get through the monitoring programs and probation and house arrest and everything that I was involved in. But in that process, I, again, just started listening to people's stories. They became relatable, and there's just so many different kinds of people in those rooms. It's really amazing. And the really crazy thing is you can relate to all of them in a certain way. But there was people that, I mean, really high up, like administrative kind of people in, you know, healthcare industry that I'm in. And, you know, I'm meeting these people and just, you know, just regular people and, you know, people whose stories just went so far down past what mine went. And they were able to really commit to recovery and turn their lives around. And it gave me permission. Those people's stories saved my life, and I latched onto them. And, you know, I practiced complete abstinence from any mind-altering substance. I mean, like even in the monitoring programs, we're drug tested so frequently in so many different ways. I mean, I've had my hair cut, I've had everything. You can't drink NyQuil. You know, I wasn't eating balsamic vinaigrette because there was an alcohol content to that. Like, I did not want to have a positive drug test. I would have lost my life over that. And, you know, so I practiced abstinence for 9 years. And I think everybody's recovery journey is so individualized. And there's a lot of people that abstinence is it, you know, and AA is an amazing program. It literally saved my life. You know, that's part of what really transitioned me into who I am. But there's plenty of people that utilize that for a period of time and then are able to socially drink or something. You know what I mean? I think it's just, there's so many ways to recover. But yeah, I mean, I spent 10 years in like actual recovery, like drug and alcohol rehab to some degree.
It's a good point, you know, to talk about abstinence base and how everyone's journey is different, right? And I do know people that they are able to go out and have a glass of wine, and we need to be more accepting when it comes to people's choices and
those journeys,
and their journeys, because they are all different. And I love that, you know, you're willing to talk about that, because again, there are people out there too that are scared of even just that in itself. Like the sober journey is so scary to them.
Oh yeah.
The idea of never being able to, I mean, I've had moments where I've wanted to, like, you know, I'm not going to drink this month or whatever. And it's interesting, the reaction from people. And I know a lot of them, like friends, are like, oh yeah, okay. You know, it's like, no, I'm trying to, like, I need your support. Like, I'm kind of trying to get to a conversation where I'm saying, I need you to support me in this, not question or sow doubt into what I'm trying to do it, and I don't even maybe know why, but it's just something I feel that I need to do for a while to feel better about myself.
Yeah.
And also take those opportunities where I come home and maybe I want to have a glass of wine that's like this big.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not going to get anything done that night. And then I'm not going to wake up in the morning when I really want to and need to, because I know I will feel better if I get up and go to the gym and getting back into fitness. And I totally understand that and respect that. So I think that's huge. And it's just brave. I mean, everyone I've talked to, it's like, it's really, really brave. You know, connecting with Lindsay is really, really easy. Scrubd Esthetics on IG. So it's SCRUBD and then ESTHETICS. Follow her, you know, boutique medical spa. They have offerings, promotions, industry info, education, really entertaining content. But I will say this, like, I'm really excited for your...
We're not dropping the name yet. But
okay. Well, not what you're going to call it, but what, like, it's in the arena
the academy.
of the academy.
Our academy.
It's their academy. I mean, I'm just like excited. I'm like, I wish I want to go to the academy. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
it was amazing.
Yes, it was. It was amazing talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's it, girlfriend.
It was so good.
Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.